Question we got in from one of our viewers was, do I lose my homestead exemption if I rent my house out in Texas? From what we understand about the homestead exemption, which you can always learn on Texas Comptroller and all the resources that are out there, it has to be your principal residence to qualify for the homestead exemption. Some of the things that most first-time home buyers we notice never even file for this, for one, which is crazy to me because it's a free exemption on your property taxes. The biggest complaint we get from people moving to Texas is our property taxes are too high. They're just so high. And one, we don't have income taxes in Texas, so it kind of gets offset because of that. And two, you have this homestead exemption as a tool to help you reduce your taxes. Mm-hmm. But when you turn into a rental property, it no longer applies because it's not your principal homestead anymore.
It's a business.
It's a business, exactly. And that is how the comptroller recovers some of the money. And so the big thing that it does is not only do you get a removal of value. So like the school tax, so every house has taxing authorities, right? So it's like you have the county, the city, the school, you might have a MUD, you might have a PID. There's different things. Every house is different, which is why when you're buying a home, you should talk to the lender and send them the exact address because the payment could be different from one house to another because across the street could be two different school districts. You could have a McKinney address with a Frisco
different
ISD.
City, different county, everything.
You could be outside of city limits and pay a MUD tax. Like everybody is very different. They can all have the same city mailing address, but not the same city taxes. Right. So that's one thing that's really important to note. And then two, in 2026, they voted to increase the exemption on school taxes. So, I remember it was $40,000 was off, and then it was $100, and now they're pushing $140 to come off of your school taxes. Also, fun fact, there's exemptions for disabled persons over 65, veterans, disabled veterans, like all sorts of exemptions, but everyone is able to qualify for a general homestead exemption if it's their principal property. So taking $140,000 off school taxes is almost $1,400 a year you're saving on your property taxes. That's a good. People get excited when their rebate checks from the IRS come in at $1,400. You should be excited about filing this exemption. One of the things, there's a lot of fraud around this, where you'll get something in the mail that says, we'll file your exemption for $80.
Right.
Don't do it. Don't do it. It's free. It's a form. You can walk into the county assessor office and file it right there. You can submit it online. I think most of them you can do it online. So just know that it's not a charge service to file it. And they're going to want some proof that you live there, like your water bill or something like that. Which is why when you go to buy a house after you turn your home into a rental and you reapply somewhere else, the other one's going to fall off because there's change in ownership.
Yes, it is.
And if you put your home in a trust and now it's in an LLC or something like that, you also have to reapply for the exemption to show you're still the principal owner and claim it. So I recently had to do that because we switched ours into a trust and my exemption fell off. I had to go back and put it back on. It took 2 whole seconds, but you don't want to mess with it. So you got
if you forget about it, you lose it.
Yeah, then you're in big trouble, yes. I believe you can do some late filings, but I'm sure there's a couple more hoops you have to jump through. And they have certain stickler things like there's a cap, a 10% cap, saying that year over year, the county cannot assess your home for more than 10% of the value. And so it's 110% essentially is how it comes out to calculating. But that doesn't kick in immediately. You have to be in the home, I think, a whole year first before that happens. So it gives the county a chance to catch the value up. If maybe let's say you bought a home in Dallas proper, someone's lived there 30 years. They had the homestead exemption every year capped, and they had an over 65 frozen exemption. Right. Taxes were like this much. If you don't have a good lender who doesn't assess the taxes of your payment on the proposed amount versus what the last client was paying, you might have a really big bill from your mortgage company. Yeah, you don't want that gap. So taxes get really kind of sticky. And if you don't have people that know what they're talking about, it's a big deal. But I think for a lot of owners that become or landlords, this tax situation changes.
You've got to pay attention to what's going on.
Yes.
You lose your homestead insurance. You got to talk to your insurance agent. You must get you basically want insurance to cover your house in case it burns down.
Right. It's like almost the studs out,
yeah.
essentially, one of those
And
policies.
We require tenants they have liability insurance. They're liable for any damages or anything up to a certain amount. And we also require them to have renter's insurance. So that's their personal belongings only.
Yes. Because if it does catch on fire, their belongings were in there.
Up, right.
Yeah. So they need insurance for that,
right.
and you need insurance for the structure.
They're not going to have coverage to replace your house.
Correct. And if they set the
that's
fire,
that's on you.
Like, and accidentally set a fire,
right.
like their insurance isn't going to cover for the house because they only had it for the belongings.
Right.
Yeah, that's not a fun conversation to have to explain.
Well, it's common sense to me.
You would think. I think a lot of people think.
A lot of people think, oh, that's on the own. That's on
they
the
have
tenant.
the insurance.
They have to do it, but
yes.
they don't.
Well, no. A lot of people. I think a lot of inexperienced new landlords maybe go to like progressive.com or just something cheap where they don't talk to a real person. They just click buttons and get the cheapest price and say, great, that works for me. And they don't realize what coverage they do or do not have.
Right.
So I think that needs to be a future episode. We need to bring an insurance agent on here to help us talk about all the different things insurance with homes, because that's a good one. Okay. When life hits hard, late payments, medical bills, job loss, or even the need to move quickly, many homeowners feel trapped. The fastest way out seems to be selling to a cash investor, but that means giving your home away for pennies on the dollar. You don't have to do that. Nearly half of homeowners today are equity rich, and that value belongs to you. With our One Move program, you can unlock that equity immediately, get cash in hand now, and still share in the upside when your home resells. Or, if you'd rather, we'll shop your property to multiple cash buyers so you can choose the best offer instead of settling for one low bid. Go to DoneDealOffers.com and discover the smarter way to get cash fast without losing the equity you've worked so hard to build.
Hello, my name is Greg Batchelor with Real Property Management, and I'm here to talk to you about your rental property. Choosing a property management company can be challenging, and here's why. On the outside, it appears everyone is providing the same services, which makes it difficult to narrow down which companies you'll actually call. Interviewing companies over the phone and in person takes hours, as does following up on references, pouring through lengthy contracts and legal documents, and getting answers to your follow-up questions. As you can see, this process can be daunting and time-consuming. So here's a few questions you might consider if you're planning on interviewing other management companies. Number one, what fees are charged to lease and manage your home, and are there any hidden fees in the contracts? Number two, how many homes and what types of properties do they manage? Number three, how many homes do they lease per month, and what are their average days on market? And number four, how quickly do they get your monthly rental proceeds to you? Homeowners have been asking us these questions for years, and that's why we manage tens of thousands of rental properties nationwide. As our clients can affirm, we eliminate the headaches, hassles, and challenges of being a landlord. So you now have a choice to make. You can spin your wheels, interviewing, researching, and pouring through hundreds of pages of legal documents with several companies, or you can hire the done-for-you, no headaches, no hassles, guaranteed services of Real Property Management. We know how stressful leasing and managing a home can be, and we know it takes a large, dedicated staff to manage your home effectively. We currently have tens of thousands of property owners who rest easy every night, knowing their properties are being professionally managed 24/7, 365 days a year. We have a customized plan to lease and manage your home. No trial and error, let's see how it goes attitude here. We will get your home leased quickly to qualified tenants and get the money to you in a timely fashion every month with the most accountable tracking system in the industry. We wouldn't have the client base that we do if we didn't deliver on our promises day in and day out. There are two ways to get in contact with us for your free, no obligation, in-home consultation to let you know what your property will rent for. Fill out the contact information form on this website and we'll call you back shortly, or just give us a call.
A good rule of thumb that we'll use for clients when they're buying a house and trying to figure out how much money they might have to pay on their taxes is, one, you can find out the taxing percentage for the house. So how much, I've seen around 2%, right, of your assessed value, which is fun because assessed value and market value, very different numbers. You want your assessed value low. If your assessed value is higher than your market value, which what you could sell at right now, you should go protest it and get it lower. But we usually say take about 80% of that. And that's what you want to apply the percentage to. So if your tax rate for all your taxing authorities is 2%, you multiply that by 80% of the market value. And that usually gives you a good rule of thumb of what you should be putting away towards your escrow accounts if you're escrowing. And if you're not escrowing, it's what you should be holding off to the side. So when October comes and you get the tax bill, you don't faint from your thousands of dollars you need to pay. Otherwise, because they can foreclose on you if you have tax liens, right?
Yeah,
like
they lien.
You have a tax lien on your house. You don't want to mess with that. So I think sometimes we have so many new landlords, which is what this show I think is really geared towards. Someone who's new, thinking about getting into this, they don't calculate this number.
Right. And
they lose the cap, which means it gets pushed all the way up to the market value of what the tax assessor deems as the market value. And your monthly payment's going to change on what you pay for taxes.
Yes.
And if you don't incorporate that when talking to you or coming up with rent rates or talking to their CPAs or financial advisors of what that number looks like, the next month of billing for your mortgage payment, also not very pretty.
Right.
And what does the mortgage company like to do? They like to do the forecasting of, oh, you're in a deficit of $200 right now, so we're going to times that by 12 and then add, a percentage. And so now you owe us $6,000 just to make up your escrows.
Right.
So that you don't
payment.
Yes, it's a whole nother thing. So we want to really make sure that doesn't become an issue for someone who's changing their general home into a tenant property. And then your capital gains. If you were thinking, okay, my house has been sitting on the market, or, I can't sell it right now because it's not selling. I want to switch it over to a rental just to buy me time. Hopefully the market bounces back.
Right.
You have to watch the clock because capital gains, check with your CPA. We're not CPA. The general rule of thumb is 2 of the last 5 years you had to have lived in it as your primary residence. It doesn't have to be consecutive, but it needs to be there. And so if you get a really great tenant that just keeps releasing, and then next thing you know, you're past 4 years, you now may be subject to some sort of capital gains when you do go to sell it. Unless you happen to move back into it, wait another 5 years to roll the clock around again.
Most of the time, owners don't move back.
No, they don't. I mean, how often do you see that? Probably pretty rare.
I don't remember.
People's
Maybe
lives
1
change.
or 2.
Yeah, their lives change. Unless maybe they're moving overseas and then coming back.
That's the ones I was thinking about.
Yeah, I could definitely see that be a pretty common scenario. But most people move to a bigger house. They don't want to move back to their smaller, littler house that has been rented.
Starter house.
Yeah, their starter house. Unless they fall on hard times, maybe it will work as a good backup. But there are some repercussions people need to take into consideration. So checking on your status with the homestead exemption. If you are a homeowner and you have not filed your homestead exemption, please do it. You don't have to wait till January 1st like before. They changed that rule a couple years ago. File it at any time.
That's your own fault.
Yes, and it's free and it's just some paperwork you got to fill out.
Right.
But the biggest thing you have to have is your driver's license has to have the address of the property on your driver's license. So if you've been putting off going back and fixing that, or most of the time you can do it online. You can fix your driver's license.
Pay me now or pay me later.
Yeah, at some point in time they're going to catch up with you. So that's one of the biggest requirements is they want to see your driver's license updated with that address. So if you moved away and you need to get your homestead exemption done, you
go get that temporary.
Go get your driver's license fixed, and that's just a whole nother conversation because the DMV is always backed up. All the time, I feel like. The other thing about depreciation, we always talk about one of the benefits of owning a rental property is you get to write off that depreciation.
Right.
Well, you may not be able to keep all of that if you go ahead and sell it later, right? So you have to be smart about that. Talk to your CPA about, okay, I've written off this much in depreciation when I go to sell it. Is there any recapture I need to consider? Because you kind of been loaning some free money from the IRS and they might come back for it. So another question to ask. And then if you're already renting out the property, Do you have to go update and notify the county? That's probably the good citizen answer is yes, but a lot of people just probably wait till they figure out it's fallen off or until you submit your name with a different address somewhere else.
I would say you
There's not a
should do
typical
that.
form. I think you do
Right.
have to notify them in some form or
Right.
fashion, but there is not an actual like form that I've moved and changed
Right.
that I could find. But your county's probably going to want it because I'm sure they're going to figure out eventually and then figure out when you moved and then probably send you a bill for the difference at some point.
A lot of HOAs now that when you rent the property, they're wanting the background checks of the tenants. They're wanting all the tenant information, what's their license plate of their cars, and they want to know who's living in the house, and they want to make sure that we did our due diligence on
Who's living there.
Who's there. So you got to remember doing that as well as moving you out and moving them in. And if
That
you don't do
alone-
that could get you a fine with the HOA.
That alone exhausts me, just that thought process where I wouldn't even want to. When I rent out properties, I don't want to DIY renting out my properties because those little checklist items like that are just something where you're going to start getting those notices
Right.
or a fine, that just doesn't make my day, you know?
One of the things for the do-it-yourselfers, if you do a background check and you have a background report and everything, do you just hand it over to HOA? You got to get permission to do that.
Yeah, because there's a lot of personal information on there.
Social Security,
Yep.
there's driver's license, there's everything. So we always make it a point of calling in, getting permission, and we also follow it up with you put it in writing that we're okay to move this on because there's so many sue these days that for anything. So we want to make sure of that. So
Good.
Get
everything in
approval
writing.
first.
Get approval and do all the things. Talk to your CPA. Talk to
Right.
your experts, and just really consider this question that you need to check what's going on with your homestead exemption. And quick reminder: if you haven't filed it yet, you should go file it. And
Yes.
if you're late, you can sometimes get it backdated. So
Yes.
try your best to get that done, and then make sure you protest your property taxes every year. Our realty group always offers help with protesting taxes. We also have a service we recommend as well. So that's something that we always give to our clients when that time comes around, because there's a deadline, and most people miss the deadline, and then they get the bill in October, and then they want to protest their taxes and
Right.
they can't. It's too late.
Snooze, you lose.
Yeah, I think it was April 15th. You were way behind on that.